I'm going to start with you, Sebastian. I'm going to start with your story of what led you to come here. You just finished your doctorate degree. You had already produced a number of robotic somethings. You've got to tell us what you produced. But you had, an academic career ahead of you. You would have done just great in Germany. What made you come here?
Look, first of all, Jane, I'm so delighted to be on this stage for the second time. So I need to make sure that I don't say the same story again. I said a few years ago when you invited me before. But the thing I love about America, and the thing I love about Silicon Valley is we're just so different. We are willing to ask every question. And it is so different from the country I grew up in Germany, the world I know. And it's the power of asking the right question and finding people who are willing to go with you, ask the right question, that makes all the difference. I feel incredibly privileged to live here, to live right now, or to live in Silicon Valley and to receive the award. It's just really amazing. I think all of us should act like children and asking all the questions all the time.
So you first came over here to go to Carnegie Mellon.
Correct.
Starting as a research scientist, then becoming a professor, and you headed up a lab. Say something about that lab so we understand what you were up to, because you were already into artificial intelligence from the begining.
I wrote the affirmative PhD thesis that settled the issue of machine learning. It was the last one I ever read because it was very wrong. But at Carnegie Mellon, I had a professor called Tom Mitchell who let me write it. And I became a professional academic before I became an industrialist. And I loved it because in academia, you can literally ask crazy questions. And it's the curiosity and the question asking that just drives me forward.
And then you took a leap. You were there for 8 years, I think.
Correct.
And then took the leap from Pittsburgh to Palo Alto.
Correct.
And
then I joined Google, and I started Google X, and I started Udacity, and I started Kitty Hawk, and
you just can't stop. You just keep starting.
It's fun. They get to play like you're the child in the the candy store, and you get to play with whatever you want. It's so amazing.
But you came as a tenured professor. That doesn't happen, Sebastian. It only happens with you. So how did that? How did you get them to make you tenured before you'd walked in the door?
Yeah, Stanford did hire me tenured, and I argued my way in. I said, look, if I don't have tenure, then you're going to be busy 2 years impressing on my colleagues. If I have tenure, I can do something interesting. And they said, yes. It actually works. And I gave up tenure about 6 or 7 years later. But what I think the most amazing thing right now, in my opinion, is, honestly, like everyone in the audience, that only 1% of all interesting things hasn't been invented yet. And to convince you, look at something amazing you all have and love, okay? It's not your cell phone, it's not your car. Let's talk about running water toilets. They're less than 150 years old. Humanity is 150,000 years old, okay? So there's this amazing thing happening right now where we can just invent crazy stuff that's really amazing for people, and we just got to do it. So for me, I feel incredibly fortunate living today to having teams that do amazing stuff with me, and I think we just invent stuff that's never been invented before. We should cure cancer. We should build flying cars, whatever it is.
Now, you said to me in an earlier conversation that we can cure cancer, and we can because it's about detection.
Yeah.
It's not about, so say something about that. And are you working with folks that are focused on this problem?
So think about this. So cancer killed my mother, my sister, my grandmother. My brother had cancer and survived it, and my father. So it's a disease that has a profound impact on my life. And cancer is one of these diseases, in my opinion, where the treatment is actually quite easy, provided you catch it early enough.
Yeah.
So skin cancer is a recent example where we did some research, which anybody in the room, it's actually the most common cancer in this country, okay? So if any of you have cancer, it's probably skin cancer. But you can treat it with a kitchen knife. It's actually not that hard to treat, you just cut it out. Provided you find it early enough. But a melanoma goes from stage 0, where it kills nobody, stage 4, where it kills 80% of people in 5 years, within 8 months. So it's not the treatment is the problem, it's the detection. And the reason why we don't detect this is because all of us, and I challenge everybody here, when's the last time you saw a skin doctor, is we only see a doctor when we are bothered. Like when something bothers us. And unfortunately, like when we break our leg, we're very bothered, it's really painful from one to the next. But if we have skin cancer, we are not bothered. And we only bothered when our back hurts, or our brain hurts, or we can't sleep, or our face turns yellow, and then, sadly, guys and girls, it's way too late. So I worked on a lot on early detection, and I honestly believe if you draw the future of medicine, it can't be that you're bothered by something, you seek the advice of a doctor, and it's the first time you run a diagnostic test. It has to be that you run a diagnostic test every day. Like when you take a shower, you should be diagnosed with cancer. And we did work recently, which was published on the cover of Nature, where we looked into how well can an iPhone diagnose a skin cancer versus the best board-certified dermatologist. And it turns out your iPhone is better than your $450,000 a year Stanford dermatologist. Turns out.
So you were well known in the world of robotics well before somebody like me knew about you. Then came 2005 and a car named Stanley. Tell us about the team you led, and who is Stanley?
In 2005, the US government launched a competition called DARPA Grand Challenge. DARPA stands for Defense Advanced Project Agency. It's the agency that invented the internet and the stealth bomber. And they told to the community of researchers, our biggest challenge ever is to build a car that can drive itself. So the competition was to build a car that could drive itself through the Mojave Desert for 132 miles from Prim back to Prem. And I competed as a Stanford professor. And it was a day when self-driving cars weren't quite real. I would talk to CEOs of the automotive industry, and they would smile at me and say, yeah, Sebastian, be crazy, you work on self-driving cars. But for me, it was the moment when this technology was invented. There was the moment when I was able to see this is actually going to happen. Now, the competition was boring. It was no people around. The only moving obstacles on the course were a couple of cows. And DARPA went out with helicopters to chase the cows away. It's because they weren't part of the spec. And about 1,000 people attended, and 5 people made it to the finish line. But to me, it was the moment when I realized, wow, it might be able to change the world.
So I want you to know that Chong-Moon Lee is listening to you the way an investor listens, very carefully. Who is this crazy guy? But Aicha, I want to turn to you for a minute. And the reason is because Sebastian came out of an education system that felt too rigid in many ways, right? I mean, that's the real reason you chose to come to American University. You went to, although you were born in Senegal, you went to high school in Paris, to lycée. Tell us about that experience and what made you decide to come here to go to college.
So at a very young age, I liked, I'm not one of these nerds that likes technology for the sake of technology. I understood very early what technology enables. I mean, Sebastian talked about cancer detection as opposed to treatment. And I tinkered with things, and I was like, wow, you do this, and this happens. This is really cool. And then the French educational system is very good at a lot of things. It's a very rigorous education. It forces you really to focus on math and physics and all that good stuff. But then there's a little problem. Then it makes you choose. And it starts classifying extremely early. It classifies around 12 years old, and then around 15 years old, and again around 17, 18. And you have to choose. Literally, there's like a baccalaureate, which is the high school exam, and then it determines what school you're going to go to, what university you're going to go to. And I had this little dilemma. I really liked math and physics and science. I did not like biology, sorry. It required too much remembering things. I'm not very good at that. I have to deduce. But I also like philosophy. I like English. I like people. And I like connecting dots. And so for me, it was basically forcing me to make a choice. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, I think my father was really raised me with understanding education, the importance of it, being self-sufficient. But I think around 17, he didn't really like the results of what he got. He had buyer's remorse, but it was a little too late. And so the combination of the rigid educational system, I wanted to study computers. Back then you had to do electrical engineering with a minor in computer science if you stayed in France, whereas in the US, you could just study computer science or computer engineering. And there was no daddy in the United States. There was freedom. There was no telling me who to date and what to do and self-correction. So I was like, yeah, right on. So
my understanding is he was okay with you going to GW, to George Washington, because he had friends in Washington who could look after you. Did they?
Oh, yeah, this is a funny story. So, you do need money to go to university here. France, different story, so I did need the check. And so he was like, okay, you can go on one condition. You're going to go to GW. I'm like, oh, what is that? He's like, it's in Washington, D.C., on the campus of the IMF and World Bank, where I have a lot of friends who will watch over you and make sure we don't repeat the same mistake. Okay, no problem, Dad. They never saw me. And
so I mean, I guess the fear was that you were going to meet a guy, fall in love, and get married, which you
happened within 2 months. I met Apple Pie America, and we're still together.
But at what stage in your life was it apparent that you were a techie, that engineering was for you?
When I realized the power of technology on people's lives, on humanity. When you study philosophy, there is a reason some of the best philosophers are some of the best mathematicians. You sort of get the connected tissues of what makes humanity tick, evolve, get better over time. And so the fact that I liked it, and I liked the impact. To me, engineering and technology is all about impact and making people's lives better. And that's when I realized, A, I can do it, B, I like it, and 3, I bring a different dimension to it. And that's when I started going, yay, this is good. And I'm lucky to be in this field and now in the Valley.
Well, there's something else that you and Sebastian have in common, too, and that is a tendency as young people to fix things that are broken and perhaps break things that are fixed. I don't know quite how it works, but that are in there, as little kids, showing this aptitude and curiosity.
If you don't break things, you're not learning.
I agree.
So I'm going to turn to you, Sanjay, because it was very, very different. Very different start. You were from a family with modest means, but very powerful values. Commitment to education, commitment to family. When you think about what makes people succeed in this world, part of it is the formal education they get, but part of it, a big part of it, is the non-cognitive skills they develop at home. What was your early childhood experience, and how did it equip you for the life you were to lead?
Thank you, Jane, for recognizing all of us. And I think when we first heard about this award and I saw some of your previous recognize, I thought I didn't deserve to be on this list, but listening to these folks, and I think, Josh, you described somebody else that I don't know who it is. Must be my mother, but nonetheless. I think, Jane, my story is a little bit different, but in some senses shares much of the common. If you think about, the fact that you've got a German, Senegal, Korean, Indian, this sort of feels like the United Nations. And part of what makes this country special is the fact that you work hard. And I came to this country at 18 as an immigrant from India. I was very fortunate in 1987. There were a few schools that were offering scholarships. I applied to Indian Institute of Technology, which was the technology institute in India, and Dartmouth College was offering a scholarship. I wanted to do computer science. And, you know, just the nature of some of the things that you learn as a kid that, you know, I'm very fortunate to have my mom and dad who live in India, and they're here today, so I want to honor my mom. She is my hero. Thank you for being here. And my dad. No offense to my dad. I love my dad too, but my mom is really my hero. But the things I learned at home were just the facts that, you know, it didn't matter what people thought about you. I had thick glasses growing up, so I was bullied. And the fact that I was safe at home taught me that the home is going to be a fortress. And I vowed for the rest of my life that for my immediate home, for the home that I might call my family one day, for the home I might call my work one day, or whatever your place of community or worship, that's going to be a fortress. And that's the value I learned early on at home. I think the second thing I learned was to treat people really well, especially people who are not so fortunate as you. This unfortunately caste system in India, but one of the things both my parents taught me was you are known by the way you treat people who have less than you. And those lessons stay for life. And then listen, once you're on your own, you know, things happen that you're going to have to kind of learn at some point in time because the bird's got to leave the nest. And I'll relay two stories, one that happened when I was in 18 and one that happened in 22. That gives you a sense of what it's like for an immigrant. I was told when I came here at 18, you got to be really polite to the immigration officer when they meet you in Logan Airport because they could deport you, okay? And it may still be the case even more so, but it was certainly the case in 1987. So I land in Logan Airport, and this man, you know, with his thick Boston accents, you know, hears me talking and said, "Young man, you speak English really well." And without thinking, because I was trying to be a little bit of a smart aleck at 17, I said, "Sir, so do you." And I thought to myself, man, this could be a deportation moment. He's going to send me back home. He didn't. I went on to college. But you just, you know, you kind of learn, okay? Why is it the assumption that, you know, somebody who isn't the same color skin doesn't speak English? You know, so that's one. Later on, one of my best friends, Tom, is here. I moved to California, and we don't have Halloween in India. So that's like a new thing, right? So imagine you have these kids that come to you with a bag full of stuff, and they mumble something, and you have no idea what they're saying. They're saying trick or treats, but you have no idea what they're, and they put a bag of chocolates in front of you. What do? I just dive in and take some. and Tom, who was my roommate at the time, just like, he's cracking up. He's like, dude, you're supposed to give them chocolates, not take them. And the kid's mom is standing at the end of the driveway saying, these guys are freaks, let's get out of here, right? So you learn these things that, you know, quickly assimilate you into a different culture. And, you know, thank God that, you know, both that immigration office didn't throw me out, and Tom still, like, wanted to be my friend. So that's kind of the story of life. And I think you, as an immigrant, you want to be in a place where, you know, you're learning. And if there's anything that I sort of capture from my teenage years into now in my 40s, is those things that the people who invested in you, it's your parents in your early days. I come from a family of 4 boys. Now my wife and my kids and the family around me at work or in church, they, in whatever your community setting is, they invest in you and you invest in them. At some point, that learning starts to move into giving, and that's been, for me, a tremendous place where I hope that this country can realize that immigrants like us have a very special place that can give back to this country and to the countries of their origins. That's sort of part of my story.
So, Chong-Moon Lee, I'm going to turn to you because it's a very, very different childhood. When you were 12 years old, you dropped out of school. So tell us about your education as a young boy and the fact that you got into university having dropped out of school at age 12. How did that work? This is in South Korea.
Yeah, my family, we are very poor. And I was the youngest kid. My parents was able to put me in elementary school. About those days, elementary school have to pay tuitions and all the costs and have to pay by the parents. So my rest of four brothers and sisters weren't able to go to even school. Being the youngest, I'm the one only got into elementary school. I finished. I want to go to middle school, which is junior high. I just cannot afford it. So, then what? I have to make some income to help to support my family. So that's how I started. After that, graduated from elementary school. I've been hired by a small diesel engine fishing boat repairing place. So diesel engine repairing. It means all this sticky thing is diesel engine. I have the whole body working on this. And in the evening, go home, wash it, you cannot wash it off. So my body was black all the time. That's how I spent my teenager time. I did pawn shop, floor cleanings, and all kinds of things I did. And then 1945, when I was 18 years old, World War II ended, Korea had been liberalized from the Japanese occupation. Then our family sit down, we talked, then what? Which way are we going now? So we become our independent, own country, then I have to do something. Something, even we don't know what something means. So I continued working and I started reading book. And then America landed, America's influence started. So I started studying English by myself, the book I bought. Those days, no recordings, just a book. And then, going by this, somehow I had an idea, someday I want to get into college and further study. Hopefully, I want to go to America for further study. So I had the national exam training school to become eligible to apply college, which I did, and I got into a private university in Korea, and I had a scholarship, good scholarship, but I had to work. And then during daytime, go in the evening, I have to work. And I studied English, and and then 1950, Korean War broke out. Korean War. American military landed. They need local boys as an interpreter. I applied. What they're looking for was South Korean, hopefully Christian background, hopefully nobody involving communist activity. I perfectly fit that condition. So I got into US military, and they transferred me to here and there. 2 years later, they transferred me to 511 US Military Intelligence Corps, analyzing day-to-day frontline fighting. Also, capture enemy alive and get the information, what's going on there. Very exciting, which I did. From there, I learned guerrilla warfare. If formal fighting with the uniformed people, you have only two ways. You lose or you win. If it is to guerrilla warfare, even you don't win, you're not losing. Exactly that what we see in Vietnam War. That's how Vietnamese against US troops. That I learned from this poor, hard life. Throughout my business career, and even I taught at college also there, what I learned is survivorship. Survive, not giving up. It's a guerrilla warfare principle. Survive. You're not losing game. Survive. That helped me being business. Even business, high-tech business, I never thought of. I found the opportunity there. Nobody else sees this opportunity. Don't give up. Survive. To survive, you have to change day by day. Now, before I got this, only thing I learned from books. That's why I want to be a librarian as a partner. Librarian. Being librarian, you don't have to worry about the buying book. So, I want to be a librarian. I studied library science at the George Peabody College, Vanderbilt. And if I may, yeah.
I actually need to ask you about Vanderbilt because you went there to do a master's program and you insisted you wanted to do it in 1 year. What did you have in mind?
The Vanderbilt, the Peabody and the Vanderbilt, they had quarterly system and this semester systems. And the quarterly system, you cannot have weekend even because of homework. You get the master's degree 1 year. But I'm supposed to be 2 years master's degree. But there is a quarterly system, so I like to apply this. And then Dean of Registration called me in, you not belong to this course. So why I cannot try this? You were supposed to be this 2-year course. So I said, Professor Fitzgerald, professor, I understand America is land of opportunity. I came to this school, full tuition, dormitory, book, and per day, $8 a day. Scholarship. Have you heard this kind of scholarship? Given to US government, to Korean government, to educate future leader of Korea. This is very special. Foreign studying test, I tried twice. I lost, I couldn't make it. Third time, I'll do it 100 times if my life continues. A third time, I've been passed. That was the future leader training. So I talked to Professor, sir, I came here with Korean government scholarship. Yes. Korean government doesn't have a penny. That's American government aid. Yes. American government aid means your tax money, sir. So I tried to save the half. So American government can save half, or Korean government can save half, or one more guy come here. Just give me an opportunity, sir. I like to try. He said, you young Korean all believe that American aid is American citizen tax money? Well, sir, common sense, I thought so. If it's not correct, just teach me, sir. That's right. I'll give you a chance. However, I will write you 3 months later. If you receive the letter, come here, be ready. You will go back to 2-year course. Thank you very much, Professor. 3 months later, I received the letter. I went. He told me, disappointed. And then, say about 15 minutes conversation, very last minute. However, I can see your change. You are improving quite a bit. So I'll give you 1 more 3 months. This time, you don't have to come, I'll write you a letter. That's it. You go back to semester. Thank you very much, Professor. You can imagine following 3 months how I did. Wow. I graduated 1 year. I went back to Korea. I become, in Korea, that caused me problem later. I'm sure it's coming out. Why I come back to US again. US Embassy Seoul cultural attaché called me and they're saying, Mr. Ambassador wants to see you. Mr. Ambassador wants to see me? Why? Did I do something? No, you know when we're coming. So, such and such time given to my office, I'll take you to the ambassador's office. So, which I did. Ambassador McConaughey, very handsome, tall. Really, you see men like this in movie. Very handsome. He stood up, coming, shaking hand. We are very proud of you. Mr. Ambassador, you proud of me? Are you sure you're talking to the right guy? Yes, sit. I said, and he said, we are very proud of you because Taiwan, Korean, go to America, finish the course, finish the degree, they don't come back.
Yeah. Wow.
You finished in 1 year and they came back.
Yeah.
We are very proud of you. We need your help. So he explained what I can help, which I can easily do. And then rumor went out. U.S. Embassy in Seoul trusts only one Korean. That is Chong-Moon Lee. Rumor went out. They brought me a negative later days, which will come out. Yeah.
Brain drain is a huge problem. It's probably a huge problem in Senegal. Is it a huge problem in India? I feel like we're getting such brilliant men and women from your country coming here and staying here. Is this a large problem, and does it concern you?
I mean, listen, the world is flat. I think, a few of the 1.2 billion people in India and 1.4 billion people in China being spread out is probably a good thing in general. No, I think that, listen, where people choose to live today is a very different decision than perhaps 50 years ago. And I have a number of classmates of mine from college who've chosen to go back in India. I see my personal commitment as to both countries. I am an Indian American. I owe both the United States, more than half my life has been here, and the first 18 years of my life is in India. So I see my personal passion to help both countries, even though I live here. Others have chosen, whether they're educated or not, to be situated there. So I think location-wise, it's a personal call. But to the extent that I can help, and the ways I can personally help is in the way in which we think about Indo-US relations, India-US investment. So I've been a big proponent in all the tech companies I've been in at investing more in India, whether it was SAP or before that Symantec or now VMware. Typically when you're of that nationality, you become a sponsor for that country and that investment. And often I find, given the world of LinkedIn and social media, you are an inspiration to many young Indians, wherever you are. So that's kind of my personal calling. There are many of them that are in in the US that ask me a little bit of my story and their advice, and to the extent that I can mentor them, that's the way in which I can give back to the country. I think it's a fascinating time right now in India in terms of what the government's trying to do to digitize the country, the same way in China. So I think when you look at these countries and where they're headed in the next, I saw a study from Stanford about what the world was going to look like in 2050 when many of us are gone from this earth. The population growth is going to be in countries that you didn't expect, and the current masses of population in existing countries is going to be dramatically changed. So I think we owe it to the countries of our origin to continue to help them in some capacity. And then the choice of where you live in a flat world is completely, and I think that changed the dynamic of brain drain.
Did you go to the Bollywood festival yesterday night?
I should have. I don't dance very well, but Bollywood is definitely kind of a big movie production part of the economy. Yeah.
So Sebastian, you've decided, you created Google X, you co-founded Google X. It was a place where you could do whatever you wanted to do. I mean, it's put together, it's designed for you, designed by you. Yet you had this aha moment that relates very much to what Mr. Lee is referring to and what each person has spoken to, is access to the kind of education that you get in the West. What was the aha moment that moved you to drop, sort of autonomous vehicles for a moment to take up something different?
Well, it's hard to kind of confess what actually happened, but I was running Google X and running self-driving cars and Google Glass and Project Loon, like balloons in the stratosphere, and iris, a computer in your iris, in your eye. And in my free time, I was teaching at Stanford. And I went to TED 2011 when a young gentleman named Sal Khan,
wonderful man,
introduced by Bill Gates, told us, the audience, they had like 30 million students. Mm-hmm. And I was teaching at Stanford at the time. I had 200 students. I was sitting in the audience like, what the? Like, how does this happen? There's this young person, like a assistive financial analyst, would have 30 million students, and I had 200 students. So I called up my co-instructor and said, hey, can we take our class online? And there was a class on artificial intelligence to be taught in the fall of 2011. And he said yes. So I wrote one email to my trade, about 1,000 people, on distribution email, and said, like, from now on, Stanford CS 211, Introduction to Artificial Intelligence, shall be taught online free of charge, and you can take the same exams and homework assignments to compare yourself to Stanford students. And the next day, it's like a Saturday morning, 5,000 people signed up. Sunday, 10,000. Monday morning, in a moment of easing, only 14,000 students. When I received the phone call of my dean saying, Sebastian, you have to see me. And at that point, the blogosphere has picked up. New York Times hasn't yet, but it said, look, Stanford is so great to finally eliminate all of tuition and make all the education free of charge. And my dean said, you can't do this. Why don't you write a textbook? And like a little time later, and the New York Times heard about it, when 56,000 students had signed up, and eventually 160,000 students signed up. Like, I was teaching more students than fit into a Beyonce concert in a single day. My God. I could fly to any place in the world and people would say, Professor, I know you from class. So I taught this class to 160,000 students, 23,000 graduated, and I taught the exact same class on campus to 200 very privileged Stanford kids. And eventually I decided to stack rank the Stanford students to the online students. And it turned out the top 412 students were not on campus. The single best Stanford student was number 413. My dean told me, you can never tell anybody. And the next day I went to the press and told everybody. But it was amazing. So I talked to the students. At some point, 44,000 students had fell behind in the homework assignments. So I wrote a script where I wrote 44,000 personalized emails saying, you've fallen behind, tell me why. And I got 43,000 personal apologies. Wow. Telling me why they'd falling behind. Like, one was a lady, Diane Green was her name, who was like a separated woman with like 2 infants, and her family went through personal distress because of like the foreclosure crisis in the country, and she was proving herself that she was taking this class too. Another person was a soldier in Afghanistan who had exited the war zone through a minefield just to get his homework done in time. Or a dying person whose last wish on his deathbed was to get an iPad to make this class happen. And look, these are stories. I'm sparing you the other 43,997. But these were people who weren't your normal Stanford student. I realized, wow, if I as a professor make a dent on people, and Stanford students, they're already great. And I can help them, but I won't make much of a delta. But these people are so different. If I can like elevate them, it's such bigger a mission. So I decided to give up my tenure at Stanford and teach millions of students as opposed to hundreds of students.
And you've reached the top.
Thank you.
You've reached a Saudi woman who is now, she's got a computer science, some kind of, I don't know what your nano degrees included, but she ended up with work in engineering, is that right?
Yeah, so we recently started with Dubai in UAE, a project called 1 Million Arab Coders, and it's my personal pet peeve. We make no money on this, but the idea is, if you grew up in the Middle East, right, in Syria, in Iraq, in Saudi Arabia, in Iran, you have exactly the same wish as all of us do. You want to have a safe life, a stable life, you want to contribute, you want your children do better than yourself, right? Like this is uniform around the world. But all of us in the room are afforded this. If you go in Aleppo, you're not. You are being told that you have to build IEDs and you're in a war zone. So 1 Million Arab Coders initiative to reach out to kids in the Arab roles in Arabic language to say, we can reach out to you and you can be a web designer, you can be a data analyst, and you can make 50,000, oh my God, US dollars a year working for a selling company. Like the first week, 200,000 kids signed up, and we got 25,000 volunteers, mentors, to just carry this. And to me, this means education is the force that will change the world. Education has been the empowerment ever since. Education has doubled the world's GDP ever and ever since. So I resigned from Google X to make that happen.
That's right.
And Mr. Lee, when I look at your philanthropy today, it is heavily focused on a combination of education and entrepreneurship. Tell me what you've done by way of bringing, I'm thinking now of Korean students, Korean engineering students. What do they most need by way of help from a philanthropist like you? And what has been your focus for them?
Well, 1998, Korea, a financial crisis in Asia, so under financial pressure and under IMF control. And the President Kim Dae-jung has to turn the country around. He stepped in as a president February 25th of 1998. I was asked by President Clinton whether I can be a part of President Clinton's envoy to go to inauguration of presidency of South Korea. I never met the Kim Dae-jung before. So it was very honor for me. So I went to Korea with 4 people as an official delegation too. That was February 25th. And After inauguration, next day, he invited this President Clinton's official delegation member asking to build up the country and bring the investors, $500 million, $1 billion investment opportunity. So he asked everyone talk about idea. So he came to me, I said, Mr. President, you know my name, I'm a Korean. He said, yes. But that's all I can tell you very honestly. There's no $500 million investment opportunity in Korea. You have petrochemicals and you have all kinds of infrastructures there. Instead, information technology is coming. You can be father of a Korean information technology. Today, as you know, Samsung and Hynix own 44.5% of semiconductor, which is memory. They occupy the global market share 44.5%. And we asked him on the way back, we asked him to stop over Stanford. And the president, Gerhard Casper, I went in. That time I was a consulting professor at Stanford also. So Stanford asked me to work with the PhD student and the master's degree student about how I manage my company. I manage the company somewhat unique ways, again, guerrilla ways. And Stanford watched what I do, even including IPO, they watch it. And they asked me to come work with a PhD student. So that time I was a consulting professor, so I was easy to get into Casper's office. So I explained, the Korean president come to Washington, I want him to bring him here and show him around the Silicon Valley, and so he can, it's just starting, he's a president, he has 5 years. And then Stanford agreed. We like your idea. So he stopped over. February 25th, he inaugurated. June 14th, that year, he went White House and as a guest, state guest. And when he back, he stopped over Stanford. So I organized the young entrepreneurs, including Jerry Yang. So I met him to meet with the President Kim, and you heard, I said to President Kim, you heard Yahoo. He said this. His reaction is this. He's Jerry Yang, such a old young boy from Taiwan. He's the founder of Yahoo. Mr. President, if you do right, team up, next 5 years, you can raise 5 to 10 of this Jerry Yang type of guy. That's challenging, Mr. President. He was very excited about it. So I talked to President of Stanford, and then since he's visiting us, and we have to do a little more, so I asked Stanford, team up, bring Korean bright engineers to Stanford 2 weeks from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock in the evening, and the 2 days showing around the Silicon Valley. For 5 years, his president team, a term, I brought 367 engineers to Stanford from Korea. And they went back and then they started business and so forth. That time, this expense I donated. And I donated Stanford. I asked the Korean president, if you match this amount, we can do this. He was very excited about it. That's why I brought it.
I wanted to raise that because most of us know your philanthropy within this country and all you have done to support the Asia Society, the Aicha Foundation, the Asian Art Museum. That's wonderful contribution to our society to have that. So I wanted them to hear about that. Aicha, I did want to turn to you for a couple of reasons. One is that a lot of folks have touched on the importance of listening, of learning from others. And you and I had a conversation in which we were talking about diversity, not in the way that everybody in this room thinks I'm going to ask you about, but instead diversity of thought, which you value so much. How do you, as a manager, get that diversity and of thought, and how important is it to your success that you do hear the voices of others who may disagree?
First of all, I live by a principle that like likes like. Now, often, especially in this country right now, when I say that, people think I'm talking about race, gender, and what have you. I actually didn't know that I was black until I came to the United States of America. I knew I was rich, I knew I was privileged, I knew I got to ski at Courchevel and do a lot of things, but for me, likes is really a mindset thing, and I realized that people who think like me don't really add anything to the equation because I'm already adding that part. So finding people who disagree with me, people who think differently from me, first of all, I should consider the possibility that if they disagree with me, they probably know something I don't, and that's a good thing because that's additive. And then second of all, given that I like to take risks and go after hard problems, it usually requires out of the box and I know that's a cliche, but different types of thinking and views. And you're only going to get that if you surround yourself with people who disagree with you or think differently from you or you don't actually like. And it has really helped me many, many different times in my career. I don't know how many times, arriving in Israel.
I forgot to mention she worked in Israel, so go ahead.
You can imagine, most Israeli engineers are a product of the Israeli Defense Forces, a really proud country and a really proud institution. And by the way, if they work in wireless, they are especially smart because they can't really physically go anywhere. And so they use wireless for really spying. And so you arrive there and they're like, who are you and why are you here to lead us? And I was like, I'll make you a deal. I'm sure we're going to think very differently from each other. But obviously, Intel Corporation thinks there's a little problem going on here. The faster you tell me about what the problem is and give me all the ideas about how we're going to solve it together, the faster I'll be out of here because I'm not doing Aliyah.
That's awesome. Nice.
And, first of all, that directness helped. And then we really got to root cause. And we took a business that was really a catastrophe, but necessary to Intel, and we turned it positive. We arrived at a situation where very creative engineers also understood the value of process, of repeatability, of sustainability, and I credit that to diversity of thought and having the humbleness and the vulnerability to understand that there are a lot of super smart people on this earth, and the trick is to get them with you and around you, and you'll get way better results and probably breakthroughs.
And they're getting nano degrees from Udacity. So Sanjay, I'm going to close with you because you teach leadership. You have your own theory of leadership that comes from your own life experience. Say a word about, remember that there are students in the audience, what guidance you would give to them as they venture forth on their lives?
Well, I'm not sure I'm qualified to give you all of that, but I'll give you a few of my own perspectives. And I also want to recognize and celebrate Betsy Sutter as our Chief People Officer at VMware, because she's really been the custodian of our culture at VMware and really kind of driven that into the community. We've really made giving and giving back. I know all of the companies here are giving back, but it's interesting when we do these things with high school kids. A few weeks ago, we had a group of kids from inner city San Jose come in to meet with us. These are folks who are poor. I grew up in a poor family. My mom was even poorer than me, so I can relate to poverty, and I told them three things. Now, it probably doesn't apply to the students here, but the lessons probably do. Number one, don't worry what people think of you. There's one thing I took away was it didn't matter, like I described, if I was bullied, It didn't matter what I looked like. It didn't, it didn't matter the color of my skin. It really mattered the content of my character. So it's very easy when you are a teenager and into college, you're really obsessed with what people think about you. And you have to free yourselves completely from what the world thinks of you. You look at the people who've had the most impact in the world, whether it was Gandhi or Martin Luther King. I mean, these weren't popular people. Okay, so number one. Number two, to the extent, this was something I was saying to the kids in San Jose, finish school and absolutely go to college. I think many people here talked about the value of education. Much of the problems in society, the reason I'm here is because of education. We have got to make that a priority to every kid to not just finish high school, but to finish college. And that's the grand equalizer. If you look at the ways in which you get out of poverty, my mom wouldn't be a doctor if it wasn't for education. My dad's family were farmers, the prior generations. What gets you to the next level of education? Sebastian articulated that very well. And in many cases, it needs to be not just high school, but college. And third, when you get to that point of being a place where you have taken enough, much of society focuses on taking. We're a very taking society. Find a way to give back. I think that when you really find that the joy of giving, it's more blessed to give than to receive, you become a happier person. And to me, when people can experience that, I think in your early years all the way up to college, you're going to be in a take mode. But somewhere in your 20s, that taking moves to giving, and you can be an extremely happy person. You've seen many of the life stories of people who've given, and I hope, certainly for the remainder of years of my life, I can give back to many of the people who've invested in my own life. That's be my 2 cents of advice to those of your students in the
I think how lucky we are that these 4 individuals chose the U.S. as their home, that they brought so much to it, and that they chose Northern California as their home, making us doubly blessed. So thank you so much. I want to thank all of our sponsors for being here tonight to celebrate these 4 individuals, but to also celebrate what they represent, and to support our students, will be the next generation of leaders as well. So thank you very much, and good night.